Peace, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Breaking Barriers. I'm your host, Piper Carter on Black Power Media. If you have just joined this show, is every week on a Monday, 8 p.m., where we talk about women in hip hop. So if that is the conversation that you're here for, then we're going to give it to you. Today, I'm very, very, very excited um, to bring to you a person who is just extraordinary. And I'm not going to do a whole bunch of intros and things like that because I want to just go into it. And if y'all don't know, Martha Diaz has been a pioneer in the hip hop education space, the archival space, the preserving our culture and history space. And I'm just very honored and excited that she made some time in all the things that she's doing to come down here and share something really special that she's doing. And so welcome, Martha Diaz. How you doing?
Yay!
I'm so glad you finally got
Awesome.
a chance to come. So this is exciting.
I know we've been trying to do this since last year, so thank you for your patience, and thank you for having me.
So, what I want to do for transparency for the audience, we're going to hear from Martha about her wonderful story so you can understand all that she has done and all that she does. And before we do that, though, I'm going to pass it to her because she's got a great event that's coming up. And yeah, Martha, tell us what can we look forward to?
Yes, well, April 5th, everybody come on through to Lincoln Center at the Alice Tully Hall, which is a really beautiful building that is, I think they have like a 300, no, actually, it's like 1,000 seats, and it's going to be filled with women from all the elements of hip hop who are coming together to pay tribute to our contributions and achievements in hip hop culture. It's called Fresh, Bold, and So Deaf. And I'm just excited. And you can purchase tickets, pay what you choose what you pay. It's for everyone. We want to make it accessible for everyone. And for those who could afford a little bit more, please pay a little bit more so that more people can join us. I'll talk more about that later, but I think that's the gist of it. Is that
Oh,
should I say who's gonna be part of it?
definitely.
Okay, I'll sprinkle some names. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the morning, by the way, we're going to host 500 students who are going to get basic foundational hip hop uh, workshops in the morning. In the afternoon, they're going to get master workshops for those students who are advanced. We have high school students in New York City that are already like, you know, acting and touring and doing their thing. So those students are going to get master classes. And then the symposium begins in the afternoon with a panel with about mentorship. And we're going to have people like Sophia Chang and Misa Hilton and Tiffany Miranda and Michelle McAfee, who are all having, they have these organizations that really um, build the skills and the self-esteem and the social currency that we need to excel in our careers. So they're going to be talking about what they have to offer, and then we're going to have the one and only Wendy Day, who's going to give us a master class on the art of negotiation. I can't wait because I
Yeah,
need.
Jared Ball is always like I never met Wendy Day. I think Wendy Day has like a is it a master class or is it a there's like trying to think what is it? It's like a not a school, but it's kind of like this training that you could enter to like learn how to
Yeah,
be
she
like do like not be a part of the matrix basically.
yeah, she gives master classes, professional development, academy. I mean, she does it all. She's really amazing. And by the way, I still have a letter from her from like 1991, or wait, maybe 1992, 1993, when she invited me to be on a panel with her. I still have that letter. So she was doing this in really early on in the early 90s. Um, and then we're going to have Shanti Das and Tony Blackman have a nice fireside chat conversation about self care and mental wellness, and just really, you know, grounding us in the things that we need for ourselves so that we can balance our life, work life, personal life. And
We
then,
had Tony on here
yes,
before. Yeah, so Tony was on here and talked about there's a mixtape that she does, like a healing meditation mixtape.
meditation, yes.
Yeah, and yeah, we had a whole conversation about health and wellness and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yes, Tony and I go way, way back as well, and she's always, had um that grounding even when she was going through her own health issues. And she always soothed me whenever I was going crazy, with this industry. She always we just held each other down. So I'm so happy to see her thriving and being her best self. And then we're gonna have a little break. People are gonna go to dinner, and then we're gonna have a smaller reception where we're going to get a proclamation that is going to declare April 5th Women in Hip Hop Day. And I don't know if you remember, but in 2008, I had declared it Women in Hip Hop, the year of the hip hop woman.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
like 2008. So now we're getting an official proclamation, April 5th, Women in Hip Hop Day. And
Mhm.
then we go into the evening program. Dr. Joan Morgan is going
Mhm.
to set off the evening with a quick keynote, a brief keynote on the uh, hip hop feminist futurism. And
This month is the 20 is it this month, I think, is the 25th anniversary of the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So I know that Joan Morgan has her book
is it the
about
miseducation, or the no, the first one
no, no,
is
no. The
the
well,
chicken has would come to
the
roost.
chicken head come home to roost. So she's I saw her do one talk like last month, and I think it was Minnesota or something like that. So I want to I have on a list for this month to like read the Miseducation book. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I just saw her at the hip hop journalism conference at Columbia, and she's just wonderful. They were paying tribute to Greg Tate, the late great Tate.
Yeah, rest in power, rest in peace.
Yes, yes, indeed. And then so she's setting off the evening, and then I will do a fireside chat with the matriarchs of the culture, the first women to grab the mic as early as 9 and 10 years old. And I'm talking about the legendary Shah Rock, the legendary Debbie D, the legendary Lisa Lee, the original Us Girls, and the one and only Pebbly Pooh, which a lot of people leave out. But she's part of the early history of women in hip hop. So we'll have a conversation, and we'll get the story straight, who did what, because a lot of people just don't know, and it's confusing. And because they're so, they're from the beginning of the culture. So we really don't, the young people don't really know the history. So we're going to get into that. And then we're only going to have two performances, because this first edition, this is the first of a three-part series that will um, begin with a very serious conversation. I want us to like really talk about the things that we need immediately. And so there will be two performances, but they're going to be dance related. So the first one will be Ladies of Hip Hop. I mean, nope, sorry, Full Circle Production. It's funny, I hear like like a lawnmower or something. What's that?
That's my dog. Let me put on a mute.
Oh, snoring? Is that what
Yeah, she's snoring.
Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, so Full Circle Production, that's Quick Step and the one and only B Girl Rockefeller. They're gonna do a performance and then we're gonna get into a panel discussion with Kathy Yondelli. She's going to moderate a panel called The Disruptors, women who, I forgot the name of it, but it's the Disruptors panel, and women who went beyond, who something like that, went beyond the culture. And these are women who really help to expand our roles by taking on more than just the five elements of hip hop. I'm talking about um, Erica Ford, who has the Life Camp organization. She's actually passing on the baton the next day. They're going to have her retirement party. She's put in the work. She's established the institution. She's got everybody in place to take over her legacy. And so she's one of those people that we're going to honor. Of course, you had Rosa Clemente last time. She will be there. We know that she ran for vice president for the Green Party. That's one of ours. Yes. Um, and we have DJ Jazzy Joyce. And even though she's a DJ, she was the first woman to compete in an all male DJ battle, and she won. Of course, she's a radio host and she's a producer, and she went on tour, with Sweet Tea and I believe Digwell Planets, maybe Mystic. I can't remember. She's amazing. And then we have Claw Money. So Claw Money, graffiti artist, legendary graffiti artist, who was the first one to design a Nike sneaker, first woman to design a Nike sneaker. She's also a curator, she's a collector, she's a fashion designer, she's amazing, she's mother. So those women are just like going to tell their story and how they've gone beyond hip hop. And then another performance by the ladies of hip hop. And then we'll end it with a panel called Blow the Whistle, Women, Culture Shifting Women. And these are women who have held our community accountable, our society accountable. Dr. Rachel Ramus was supposed to moderate it, but unfortunately, she's called to duty. She's, Hollywood director, and actually, she's the first woman in hip hop to have a center named after her. And well, not Minnesota is not Detroit, but I
Well,
was like,
she
in
did
your
have, yeah, she had like the really long lasting women in hip hop conference. And it was like all, not only just all elements, but it was also, I would say, like just different aspects, like around whether it was scholarship, whether it was activism, including just thinking about the culture in general. So her conference was one of those expansive, conferences that wasn't just about, the performance and this kind of thing, but really thought about the culture in general and how it lands on women. And it was, very, very, uh, you know, I'll say impactful. You know what I mean? Like it had a strong impact. So
absolutely, it was called We B Girl B.
yeah, B girl B.
B Girl B, and it was a community effort. Like she went into the community. It was one of those conferences that it wasn't in a institution. It was outside of the institution and inside, was both. And so she's actually my co-conspirator with Dr. Irma McLaurin. for this Fresh, Bold, and So Deaf initiative. And so she's unable to join us because, like I said, she's now directing movies in Hollywood. But she has a center named after her. She has the Dr. Rachel Ramis Feminist Media Center at the University of Minnesota. So love that. And then so we have uh, replacing her, we have Gambisa Umshaka, who is an extraordinary actor, writer, media producer. She's a heavyweight in the entertainment industry and, a real amazing creative director. She's produced a lot of campaigns for like Mary J. Blige and Nas and I think even Beyonce. So anyway, she's going to moderate it. And we're going to have Kim Osorio is going to be on the panel, Elizabeth Mendez Berry. So for all those who don't know who Kim Osorio is, she was the editor in chief at The Source, and you know, um, she sued them for there were several reasons why she sued them, and she won for I guess not for the main reason, but I guess for I don't know maybe defamation or um, for something about the workplace. But she will talk about it, and I just want to put a disclaimer out that we're not going to bash men in this panel, but we will keep it real on how these actions have impacted us. So she's not going to go into details about the lawsuit, but she's going to talk about how it really disrupted the workplace and how, after she left the source, how it changed her life. And then we're going to have Elizabeth Mendez Berry, another author, writer, who just produced the hip hop journalism conference with Jelani Cobbs, and she was one of the first person to write about sexual harassment in hip hop and in the community, in our community. And so I believe she wrote an article in Vibe magazine. And she continued to be a champion of women who have been um, sexually assaulted. We have J Fads, Juana, who a lot of people don't know, a pioneer in hip hop from the West Coast. She is going to be talking about surviving domestic violence. Um, and we have B Girl May, who is out of Seattle. She runs an organization called the Good Foot, and she created a anti-sexual harassment toolkit for the dancers because there's a lot of sexual assaults in the dance world, B-girl breaking world. And so we'll end the night with solutions and how to move forward and how to protect ourselves and how to um, really unite with these causes so that we can take things to the next level. And of course, the second symposium will be about the golden era of hip hop. And I'm hoping to touch on the themes of sex, drugs, and rap and roll. Um, yeah, I can't give away too much because I'm curating it right now, but I'm hoping to talk about those themes. And also this is where we get to have a little bit of fun, and so we'll have some MCs perform as well. And the third one will be about, and it'll be in spring 2025, It'll be about this new wave, feminist wave, young people wave, um, where, all the young B girls who are like 9 and 10 years old, who are winning battles all over the world, and the young MCs and DJs who are doing their thing, who are now going to take on the legacy and continue the work. And so we'll highlight them, um, and then, we'll close it out. But it won't be the end. We'll continue the conversation. But these are like the main three um, conferences that will set off a decade of work, because this is just the beginning. We have so much to do.
So thank you for that. I also want to just acknowledge that this is the culmination of a lot of work that's been happening, right? Like over time. So can you talk about, because your organization, well, you have the Hip Hop Education Center, but also So Bold, So Fresh, So Deaf. And so I'm wondering if you could help us understand like how we got to this event and like so, the work that you've been doing over time.
Yes, actually, you're right. This is decades of work. Um, we and you're right. We've also had other conferences. The B Girl B is one. The We Be Girls in Germany is another one. There was the Hip Hop Feminist Conference in Chicago. Um, and then there's these smaller regional discussions happening. And then, of course, you have, Black Girls Rock, and you have Ladies of Hip Hop, who I mentioned before. And I can't remember MC Lights' organization too. Women in Hip Hop or something like that. So we have been organizing, but kind of in silos, and now it's just the culmination where we're like, okay, we need to bring it in, let's bring it together. um but I would say I started my work in the early 90s, when I started working for Yo MTV Raps as an intern. I moved up quickly um as a producer, and just wanted to help others enter the workforce. I've always been generous with my connects, and I've always wanted to bring in others, because I knew I was privileged. And as soon as I had a little bit of power, I wanted to have some conversations about what was going on. Um, Like, one, I felt like the media was exploiting us, or not really telling our side of the story. They were just like using us for ratings. And then the music industry just kind of took over and just put out another narrative, or just one narrative. And we're so diverse. And especially when in the early 90s, where we had hip hop artists from all over the country, all over the world, as because I remember MC Solar was huge, and you know, the the Brazilians had their rappers, and so and Canada had their rappers. We were very diverse in sound, in style, but we all had a connection, which was the struggle, and we were the underdog. There were a few who weren't rapping about that, and they were rapping about sex and fun, and um, but it was it was enough diversity that we weren't just gangster rap, which ended up happening, right? The media, the companies. the media companies kind of took over our narrative and just wanted to push that gangster rap, drug dealing, hoe, vixen. And I just felt like, what is going on? Like, wait a minute. Like, let's take control of this. But by that time, our own people started to sell us out, and they started to form companies that were selling each other. We were selling each other out and pimping ourselves. And by that time, it was like, okay, for me, it was time to go. I maybe worked on 2 movies in Hollywood, Who's the Man and Dangerous Minds. And then I was like, I'm out. I can't be part of this. So I became a filmmaker, an independent filmmaker, and that's when the RZA funded me and was an executive producer. And I just wanted to document what was happening around the world. It was really important for me at that time to like just really make sure that this history wasn't going to be erased. And mind you, Yo MTV Raps was a pioneer not only in the commercialization of hip hop. We were traveling to Jamaica, to Europe, and um, so it wasn't that we weren't highlighting hip hop around the world. It just was very limited. And so I wanted to produce a show that was truly an international hip hop show. And this was 1993, 94. Um, and, after that, again, just the resistance from the industry just disappointed me. I was just like, I got to do something else. And I just went back into the community. I said, I'm going to use my skills. I'm going to teach the kids. I had 2 little babies, and they were living in Colombia. And when they would come to the United States, I would put them in schools, public schools, so that they could learn their English. And I would be a substitute teacher, and just to watch them. And sometimes I would have them in my class and make them read. Hey, Amber. Hey, Anais, read this. And they would be like, Mom, why? But I just got into education. I loved it. Um, and so I was trying to figure out my way. I was trying to reinvent myself, and I got into filmmaking. I did some independent stuff with like Source All Access. I don't know if you remember that show. It was like a it was there for a hot minute and then it disappeared. But I did some indie stuff. I worked on some music videos with Lionel Martin. Um, and then when I was teaching, I realized that because I was bringing in magazines and CDs and just artifacts to show the kids, look at the hip hop then and hip hop now. And my principal would ask me, what are you doing that all the students want to go to your class? And I said, nothing. I'm just teaching them hip hop. It was a media literacy class. And I just felt like, wow, I'm really reaching these young people. And it stayed in my mind. And at the same time, I was a filmmaker, and there was a film festival that rejected me. And I was like, I'm going to start my own film festival. I don't need you. And I just gathered my other friends who were filmmakers, and we did this as a community. And this sister named Patricia Wang, she she helped us develop the youth um, competition. And she was like, what else do you want to do? And I said, I'm teaching, and I don't know, I feel like hip hop in education is going to be big. I want to know who else is out there doing this. And I know I had heard about, scholars teaching hip hop in academia, but I was interested in K through 12. And so we put out a call, and about 30 teachers from around the country came to the Bronx Museum to have a meeting with us. And they shared their lesson plans from geography, science, math, history, English language arts. And I was like blown away. I was like, whoa, this is going to be a movement. I knew it. I just felt it. And that's when, you know, um, I had my film festival, I had a hip hop education summit, and again, always always aware that as a woman, it was harder for me to do everything. It was hard, to get the money, to get the respect, to just to have the same resources as everybody else. And so I've always tried to like program a panel about women in hip hop in my festival, or highlight a woman who's teaching education. And I've always tried to just champion that uh for us. And so I would say it started around that time that I started to think about organizing women in hip hop, but not so much organizing as much as like really giving them their flowers. I think the first woman that I was adamant about just putting out there and making everybody learn about was Cindy Campbell. When I found out that she and Kool Herc were the ones that threw the party, I was like, wait a minute, why are we only talking about Kool Herc? Why? And, at that time, I was going to Zulu Nation meetings, and I was friends with Kool Herc and Cindy Campbell, and I honored them at the film festival. But it was during that time that I felt like, okay, it's necessary to be an advocate and to tell the history of women in hip hop, because we just are not talking about it. So it happened in the early 2000s. But again, in the beginning of my career, I've always been someone who um, have supported other women. That was a long-winded answer.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that again you saw a value in the archiving. So I think I want to hear more about that beginning understanding of like um we need to archive our own stuff, we need to create our own narratives, we need to be in control of owning, right, like pieces of our history and documenting it, but then also telling the stories about it. And so I want to hear more about that because I think that that's really super fascinating.
Yes. Well, I mean, anyone who's a real hip hop head is collects something. You may not be a big collector like Biz Markie, who had like a whole house, full of stuff. But you might have, like a sticker or a flyer, a t-shirt, whatever. Well, I was one of those collectors, and so, like I said, I have a letter from Wendy Day from when I first started my career. I just felt like it was very valuable, very precious for me you know, um, to have an item that one day could be part of my story. I really didn't think about it like I'm gonna have a museum one day, but I did feel like if I were to die today, at least I have this to tell my story. And so early on, I was collecting. And like I said, I was bringing items into the classroom, artifacts um, in the 90s when I was a substitute teacher. And And then when I had the film festival, and then documentation was important, right? So not only was I collecting, flyers from the club, this, that, the other, it was important to document the history because nobody else was doing it. Nobody else cared. So I was like, I'm going to care. I'm going to document it. But I didn't think about it like, oh, I'm going to document it so I could license it. No, like people, that's how people think today. But I'm I did it because I wanted again to just save a memory, right? It was my memento. And then with the film festival, we started collecting a lot of films, and we in the application you had to give two copies of whatever film you were submitting. And we had films from all over the world. So we had 3/4 inch tapes or U-matic tapes. And these are different formats of tapes. And because technology has evolved, we have them all now. But we had 3/4, we had um, beta, right? And we had PALs, which was the European format to play back. We had mini DVs, we had VHS, we had thumb drives. And so I'm carrying all of these tapes and media with me, media formats with me as I moved. And I've moved quite a bit. I've moved over 30 times. And so I would carry boxes and boxes. My daughters were like, Mom, because they're in the living room, they're in the closet, they're everywhere. And they're like, Mom, why? Why? I'm like, they're mine. I gotta put them somewhere. I gotta save them. They're our history. And so that's really, when I started to think about archiving because I couldn't play them back. I couldn't play the 3/4. I didn't have a 3/4 inch deck. Um, and then remember when the VCR was discontinued? I was like, "Ugh, how are we gonna play back the VHS?" And so when I went back to school to get a master's in social entrepreneurship and hip hop, um, I took an independent course on archiving with a pioneer in media archiving, Mona Jimenez at NYU. And she gave me like a crash course on archiving, and I managed to organize 440 um, media items in the H2O collection, the film festivals collection. I was able to write a brief history on the collection, given I gave some provenance on how I collected the material, the cultural material, and I numbered everything and described everything, and I just fell in love with archiving. I was like, wow, like it's 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 a whole nother level of understanding because then you begin to map out and make associations with, you know, the with the inventory and the categorizing, and you start to see a bigger story. And I donated this collection to the Schomburg Center, and it's there now. It's been digitized. You can actually go watch these films. They have a finding aid, um, where you could, you know, see what movies are in there. And it was just one of those things that it was just like, oh, I should learn how to archive because A is really a great way to research history. B, I started to learn that people who are actually collecting hip hop in these institutions don't really have a hip hop archivist processing collections. So those people who are describing hip hop, they're seeing it from a lens as an outsider, let's say. they're not really part of the culture, so they wouldn't know the nuances on how we really live hip hop, how we do hip hop, you know? And so how would they know what digging is, right? For a producer, for a DJ, how would they know, you know, the mixing? How would they know our style and why we do what we do? And so I said, I'm going to become an archivist so I can become an advocate and I can recruit our people and show others that if we could do this ourselves, it's pretty easy. It only really gets technical when you start to digitize material, but pretty much anyone can be an archivist. But and nowadays everybody's calling themselves archivists, even though they're like collectors, they're like, you know, catalogers, but archiving is actually a science. And now they're actually calling true archiv or they're calling digital archivists archivist technicians to distinguish them. But you know, the archiving started as a collector, and I started to see how my collection was when I brought it into the classroom, how it made a difference with young people and how it made them more curious, how it made them understand the evolution of technology, the evolution of history, the continuum of history, and how they can contribute to it, cultural production and how it's expressed in many ways. Um, and I felt like everyone should be teaching with archives. Everyone, whether it's math, science, whatever, you need to go into the vault and bring, you know, some artifacts. As a matter of fact, you know that our hip hop collection at Cornell University is it's right next to a copy of the Bill of Rights. How cool is that? You know, so imagine bringing a real copy or a copy of a copy of the Bill of Rights into the classroom, and that's how you study, you know, our legal system, our politics, our governance governance. So so that's how I got into archiving, and I realized also that it's a great way to um not set the story straight, but to confirm people's stories, you know. You know, we've chosen August 11, 1973 as the start date of hip hop, but that's an arbitrary number, and we know this. Herc was DJing before that day, and there were other DJs before Herc. His own father was they had a father and son business, DJ business. And so there's a lot of history that um is not told, and it's because we don't have the evidence. But now that everyone's building up these archives, we're starting to see more information. And we're making associations and we're not correcting history, but rewriting history. And so it's really an exciting time. And I always saw this as a way for us to take control of our narrative, to have a counter narrative, but to really preserve our history. And this is one thing that the entertainment industry, the music industry, wouldn't be interested in. That was then. Now, hmm, now that's all they're interested in. Now they want to buy up the archives because they know that they could remix it, they could sell it back to us. But we have made a lot of progress, so they have a lot of catching up to do.
Um, I want to say thank you for having the foresight to think at that time about preserving the culture, and then also too, I'm wondering if you can share, you shared kind of like your why and things like that, and I'm wondering, at that time when you were initially, before it was, I want to say, taken seriously, like, can you take us back there to, like, how were you able to you know get the archives to the point to where they were, or where they are in the state of protection, so to speak?
How did I get to that point? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, they weren't in bad shape because I had them in boxes, and in some cases, I had them in plastic bags, which you're not supposed to keep them in, because it messes up the magnetic tape. But, um, at least they were clean, and I didn't have them dusty and everything. But it was, about, let me see, 2000. Yeah, it wasn't too far from, so I stopped the film festival in 2008, and then that's when I started my master's degree at NYU. So it was about 2 years, so they weren't in bad shape, but, it was during I took it on as a project for my degree, which I recommend everyone do, when you're in school, try to figure out what you need to, complete assignments. So it's a win-win. The teacher gets the assignment, you get your thing, you know? Um, so yeah, I don't know. I had a list compiled because of the film festival. We had applications, we had a spreadsheet with information. It wasn't complete, but it was enough that I was able to gather and create. I was able to create metadata. Um, I was able to identify who the filmmakers were, what country it was from, how long. Some just maybe, I would say a handful, maybe 7 tapes didn't have a lot of information. I had to play it. Luckily, in my program, we had all the decks of all the films for of all the media formats, so I was able to play it, and I would find it in the credit, who was the director, who was the production company, what year, et cetera, et cetera. So that is a very important part of archiving, is just really filling in the information and then describing it, um, the significance of it. And if it were to be somebody else's collection, I would say that I would ask them, where did they get this tape? Where do they play it? What does it mean to them? This collection happened to be a part of an organization, and then it was given to me. I inherited because the organization folded. Well, it discontinued, and then I went to school, and then I kept it, and I gave one copy to the Schomburg, and one copy I've kept, and I still have it. The other copy, and I'm holding on to it so that I can give it to another institution that is also going to start, a collection. But yeah, and in addition to the media formats, a lot of the filmmakers had flyers and posters and merch that they created. So we have associated material that that is part of the collection. And it's really, again, very important to map out, you know, who, when, where, and why, and how. Um, like for example, this Colombian documentary, Frecuencia Colombiana. I remember the name because I'm Colombian, but Frecuencia Colombiana, the posters were created by the filmmakers in a printing press. So the material was, very delicate, and I remember them telling me how they made those posters by hand versus someone, else who had a little bit more money, or someone from the United States with access to printers, polish, with the shiny polished paper. Those posters look different, and it's, again, for a curator, these are the things that you look for so that you can compare the processes of artists and how they produce culture and produce cultural material.
This is so fascinating. Like I could sit here forever
I know. I feel
and
like
hear
I'm
you.
talking so much. I'm like,
No, it's
wait, and then
fascinating because I really love especially I could get into the printed conversation forever because I really love prints and the printing press, and but that's a whole nother show. So now so moving forward, right? So now you have the archive is protected. You've helped others learn how to do the archiving, brought others into the fold, and you have young people that are you have under your wing. You've been training them. So now you have the next generation of people who know how to protect, well, to dig, if you will, and to protect and learn about our culture. So thank you for that. And then I have two questions from the chat. I think well, one question, so shouts out to the chat. So Yipper99 is a Black Power Media longtime supporter and has two questions. The first question is like how do we know each other? And have we done projects together? And then the second question is for you, and it's like, have you gone back to different places that they name Cuba, Jamaica, but I'll say like different places, and has the corporation or the industry, and it says the negative aspects of hip hop spread there, or are they keeping it the same to its original roots?
a lot of good, great questions. Do you want to begin with how we know each other?
I'll just admit that I had been a fan of yours for a long time. Your filmmaking. I guess so. I've been a hip hop head forever, and so from a hip hop head's perspective, people who I'll say for me, people who have been the keepers of the culture. Like I'm fans of people who are culture keepers, if that makes sense. Like I had been before being on here. I'll admit I was and am a fan of Dr. Jared Ball. I would consider him a culture keeper, right? And so there we've had many different um culture keepers over time, and I'm just fascinated. Raquel Cepeda, like we have so many people who tell our stories, who package our things in a way that help us be able to honor and preserve our culture, critique our culture. So I'm always a fan of like that person. So that's how I first was learning about and loving you. And then for me, I think in terms of the relationship piece, in terms of doing the projects together, we haven't actually done like a project together, but you have invited me into your project through being part of the women in hip hop aspect of when the groups that you're reforming to think about how we preserve our women in hip hop culture. And I would say you did bring me to Schaumburg to enjoy this was a while back now, some of
Mm.
the conversations that you were hosting around women in hip hop. So I think there's that, but I don't know if you want to take the other one.
Yes, yes. No, no, I believe that's when uh was that like 2012? That big Fresh Bold So Deaf conference
Yeah,
at the
around there.
Swanger.
Yeah, around
Mhm.
thereabouts. Mhm.
Mhm. Um, but I was a fan of your work too, because you were a photographer and you were documenting our culture. And like you mentioned, I'm also um I always pay attention to the people who take care of our culture, document our culture. So I was watching you as well. And and what was the other question?
So it's basically about like your current like relationship or existing relationship. Like, have you gone back to different places? In the chat, they named Cuba and Jamaica, but you've been to other places. So I'll say
Yeah.
all the places. And has the corporation or the industry? I'm trying to understand. It says the negative aspects of hip hop has it spread. Have the negative aspects of hip hop spread there? And are they keeping
Mm.
it the same to its original roots?
Well, yes, I have traveled quite a bit, thanks to hip hop culture. I've been to Cuba, and I was there in the early 2000s, maybe 2004. There was a hip hop festival that the government Fidel's government was sponsoring. This was after they were, like, doing it on their own, these hip hop artists from Cuba, but the communists, of course, were like, "No, we gotta know what they're doing. We're gonna sponsor them so we could keep an eye on them," and it changed everything after that, um, but a lot of those artists left, Cuba, and, new younger people were there are there who are doing their own thing. Um, but they're never gonna be as commercial as we are. But Europe, I've been all over Germany, Italy, the UK, the Netherlands, France, Sweden. Recently, I've been to Sweden a few times. I've helped curate a few pop-up exhibits with Paradise Gray from the X Clan. He's also the chief curator at the Hip Hop Museum, and Pete Nice, Prime Minister Pete Nice from Third Base. Um, I've been to Brazil a couple of times, few times. Sao Paulo is amazing, and Rio is good. The hip hop artists have remained loyal to the community. They started their own archives. As a matter of fact, um, when the first time I went to Sao Paulo, they there was this oh my God, I'm really bad with names, especially when it's late. I'm like, I need my food. But this brother who had his collection beautifully organized in the favela, in this rec center that he created. This was even before, I think, even before I got into archiving. No, 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 no. I think it was while I was in school, I went to. And I was like, damn, like he had not gone to school and he had everything beautifully organized. And it was temperature control because it was in the favela, in like a cave, you know, uh, situation where like everything was cool. And so people around the world cherish hip hop. They understand the spirit. They understand why we need it. They understand the struggle and why the culture can help us heal and express ourselves and grow and make like they say, make something out of nothing, even though we always had something. We're standing on the shoulders of our ancestors and so many people who have sacrificed their lives, you know, for us to be here in this moment. So we know that we come from a long legacy of ancestors who have paved the way. And they know that more than we do. We've gotten lost in the entertainment industry, and we've been programmed to not think outside of the United States. And that's why I feel like I've gotten so much resistance to open up the story around hip hop, because when you see what's happening around the world, you are reminded of why this culture exists, why it was given to us as a gift so that we could wake up and see the brilliance in ourselves, see our power, not to misuse it like like some people are being exposed of doing, but to really use it to empower ourselves in the community. And so South Africa, South Africa had a museum way before we had thought about a museum. When we went to um with the Black August tour in 2001, they already had they were already working on a hip hop museum. Now, mind you, hip hop collections began in 1999. The first hip hop collection was created at the Schomburg Center, which is a library, New York City library. That was the first one. The second one was in 2002, and that was created at Harvard, and that, created by Dr. Marcelina Morgan. And that was 1999. So imagine, how it took decades before we thought about like creating an archive for ourselves. And that wasn't even the Schomburg didn't want to do it. It was Easy AD from Cold Crush Brothers who went into the Schomburg and say, "Hey, this is my neighborhood. I'm pretty famous. I'm from the Cold Crush Brothers. I helped create hip hop culture. You need to have a collection, a hip hop collection. And here, I'm going to help you start it." He had these flyers and things, and he still has so much more that he's holding on to. But it took someone from the community to start the collection, not because they were thinking, "Oh, we should have a hip hop collection here at the Schomburg," even though to us it makes sense now, but they weren't thinking about it then. And it's because, back by that time we were already backlogged with jazz and rock and blues. And so we were still processing those collections. Um, but South Africa was way ahead of the game. And then I've been to Canada, I've been to Japan. Um, Japan is an interesting country. They've always saw the value in us before we did, but you know, there's some things that are problematic with how they have changed their appearance, and how, and for some people, that's a great, honor, or what is it, the word that I'm looking for, the flattery, you know. Um, But to some people, that's like, "Yo, you don't have to do all that, like, that's too much, just be you." But that's the influence of hip hop culture, and for someone who is not, and this is why we have to be teachers, right? We have to educate our own people and people outsiders, like, this is from our culture, and we can connect it to your culture, and it's that's what educators need to be doing, is really bringing out the best in everyone and bringing out their cultures, because there's a lot of people who don't listen to hip hop. And when you are in the classroom, you shouldn't be like, "Oh, you should listen to hip hop." No, you listen to salsa. Okay, well, look, this song from salsa was sampled in hip hop. Like, that's your entry point into having a conversation, into sharing culture. The cultural exchange is really the center point of hip hop. Like, and that's where we're headed now. Like, I think Next Level is really doing a great job in the exterior, but now it's time for us to have cultural exchanges here in the United States because we need to be reminded of what the culture is doing, which is sampling cultures from the past and present. So yeah, so hip hop all over the world is evolving, and in some cases, I would say in the UK, it's gotten a little bit commercial. Um, but there, with every commercial group, there's always some real grassroots purists that really um, remain true to the culture.
I appreciate you making the time to come here and share this with us. I wanted to before we go, just remind folks that if you go to the description, you'll see all the information about how to get in touch with Martha and also the upcoming event. And I know you spoke in the beginning about um, all three events. Um, and you said something to me on the phone that I thought like really struck. And that it's that how over and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but like over the years, you know, how the younger people say things like, "Oh, I wouldn't have tolerated that. I wouldn't have tolerated that." And that there were different conditions, right? Cuz like every, you know, as we grow, right? We, you know, we learn. And so you were saying something around like that first generation and having that conversation and a lot of healing that can take place. So I wanted you to kind of speak about like that part, because that part is coming up right in April, like that conversation. So I wanted you to just you touched on it, but I want you to just speak on like that portion a little bit more.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying, what you're asking, but if I'm not hitting the mark, let me know.
Mhm.
So we're now 50 years into hip hop culture, and a lot of what young people listen to today and see today, these images represent a different generation of hip hop, but also like a different narrative in our history. And the pioneers, architects of hip hop have been kind of left behind. And that's why I think last year with the celebration, a lot of the elders wanted to be seen and heard, and they did not shine the light on as many young people as possible, which I felt was a missed moment to bring us together, that generations. And so the elders are still trying to, and I have to be, really delicate with this because this is people's lives, people's history, people's legacy, and they worked really hard. And yeah, they're part of our ancestors that we're standing on, right? Um, they feel like they haven't gotten the recognition, as being the first in this and the first in that. And people dismiss it as like, oh, y'all crazy, or you know, um, y'all bickering over nothing, like nobody cares. But it's like, no, we care. It's important to get the credits straight. It's important for people to know that I was the first one to record a rap. I was the first one to be in a group, you know, I was the first one to perform for Zulu Nation. I was, like all of those first really matter in history. And and then you can go back and understand that, wait a minute, you were 10 years old, that there were no other role models for you to see, that you just decided to pick up the mic to do this, that there was no book that you could read to show you how to rap. when you start to understand the genius behind that and that the first really matters because of that, because of your brilliance, and because now 50 years later, people are doing the things that they're doing, that women are rapping because you did it first, it matters. And so we're going to talk about these things and, um, throughout all three, because we could say that Nicki Minaj is also a trailblazer, that she took lyricism to a whole nother level, that she took, her uh personas to a whole nother level in the entertainment of hip hop. And we can move, to today's artists, and we could point out some of the trailblazers there, pioneers there. So I think it's important to always acknowledge the contributions and achievements in that way, um, to celebrate the genius, the brilliance. Um, I would also, if you allow me, I like to talk about just two more things because you mentioned, um, the archiving and teaching young people. Yes, I've been working on just creating workshops in different communities and trying to build transfer stations. And these are stations where we have all the different formats, media formats, and including scanners so that people in our community could preserve their history, photos, and get them digitized for free, or at the very least at the, the, the just smallest cost, so that you could preserve and take care of your history, and just tell people, just give them the basics, like don't put stuff in plastic bags. Disaster preparedness is important, especially with all of these catastrophes happening. Is important that we think about, like, oh, our baby pictures and whatever heirlooms we have in our house, like really protect them. And don't put your stuff in the attic, and don't put your stuff in the basement. Like, there's so much to learn about how to take care of our things. So I'm doing these workshops in the community. I'm also working with Arts to Work and the Alliance for Media Arts and Culture on an apprenticeship program, because archiving is a really good field to get into. It's the new blue collar worker where you can make good money, helping to organize and take inventory and and to curate uh collections. It's really, I think, I'm trying to build up a workforce around this so that young people could get paid $20, $25 an hour to do that work. And so with Wendy Levy, who's over there, we're building a digital archiving and curation program. And lastly, I've been working with Music Will, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing music into all schools around the country, and the Hip Hop Roundtable, which is made up of a group of educators and artists, scholars who we're developing uh, PK through 12 hip hop music education guidelines, another word for standards. Um, I was blown away, like, really just couldn't understand why hip hop wasn't taught in music class. Okay, not English, even though that doesn't make sense, or math or science, but you're telling me that hip hop is not even taught in music class? Are you serious? And so, because Music Will hired me to be a strategic consultant or strategic lead consultant for their hip hop initiative, I was like, listen, what we really need are standards that could be part of the curriculum. And together we have come together to create a draft that is going to be distributed to our community. So we're getting this peer review first, Then the National Association for Music Education is going to review it, and they're going to adapt it into their new music education standards. They haven't updated their standards in about 20 years. So hopefully, God willing, it will happen. Our standards will be now included in the new standards. And so music will be um, included in music education at the very least. And this will be the template that we will use to create a hip hop uh, dance education and hip hop English language arts education, and all of these different subjects will have our own standards, guidelines that we will include in K through 12, PK through 12. So that's really important for education reform. And that to me is the most exciting initiative that's coming up, aside from the probation center in the Bronx that I'm working at, the Neon Probation Center, where we're building a studio in the probation center with young people. Like, those are the things that are exciting me, because we're not looking to the industry um, for validation or anything like that. We don't even need their help in what we're doing, but um, but they're starting to see that this could be helpful in creating new talent. So they are starting to support as well. We have a lot of support now from Dolby, Impacts Lab, and Apple. They want to help. Um, so there's so much more. I'm good. I know I've been talking a lot. I know your people. I don't see the chat. I wish I could see.
Oh, it's like a thing you'll see on the right, and it says like comments and
No veo, no veo. Oh my
uh
God, the comments. Oh my God.
yeah. So I also want to say peace to Yipper 99, and also peace to Kipanga, and also peace to Minister Server.
Minister Server. Yes, mi hermano. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, Yipper, $24, honey. 20 to $25 an hour for beginners in archiving. This is what I'm saying. Like, we need to create the future of work is us creating it. That's the future of work, right? And this is what hip hop taught me. I've never really worked for anyone. I've created all of my jobs. And if
Mhm.
I take on a client because I'm a consultant, it's under my terms. I decide how long I want to work on a project. But yes, well, thank you all for joining. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank
Yeah, this
you.
is exciting. I mean, there's so much other work that you do as well, that we didn't get to, and we'll probably have to bring you back to talk about those things. But I know I want to let you go eat, go
Thank
eat your
you.
dinner. But I want to thank you, and then, there's Hip Hop Education Center, right? That's how people can get in touch with you. I put everything in the description of this video. So it's Hip Hop Education Center on all the socials, and Hip Hop Education Center dot, is it .org or
Yes,
.com?
yes, .org. Oh my
.org.
God.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It won't let me even comment or anything. I need to, okay, next time. Um, but yes, you can find me hiphopeducation.org. We're also on Instagram, Hip Hop Education Center. Um, I am Martha Diaz on Instagram. We're also on LinkedIn. We're trying to get our business up in LinkedIn. This is
Yeah.
really, yeah, yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone who had the opportunity to join. And if y'all are watching the replay, the event is gonna be April the 5th, right?
Yes, April 5th, Lincoln Center. You can go to lincolncenter.org/SoDef, and you'll see the lineup. It's choose what you pay. So if you need to buy a ticket for $1, please do so. 5, 10, whatever you want to give. We just want you there. We want you to join the conversation, be part of the change. This is the moment. This is the moment. We know that our Me Too movement has arrived, and we're really excited um, to make some changes and to really put a spotlight on the work that really matters. It now makes sense why so much negativity, so much exploitation, so much misogyny, why that was happening. We now know why. I feel like, oh my God, I was going crazy. I was like, does anybody else see this?
Right,
Like,
right. But we have words for it now. We have whole organizations that are dedicated to eradicating this stuff. And so this is, yeah.
but it felt like we women in hip hop haven't had our moment. Like it started and it deflated, and it would start and then it would deflate. And now it's like, oh, but now we're removing the problem from the roots. And yeah, but I always caution people, like once that's gone, the new gatekeepers have to make sure they don't repeat the
Hmm.
same, you know, oppression.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Martha. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the Black Power Media ecosphere for joining, and anybody else who's come over to Black Power Media. If folks don't know, you can go to Black Power Media's all the everything Black Power Media, all the socials. Check out some of the other shows that are on the channel. Yeah, just bringing you a different flavor in your ear, and hopefully your psyche. So, all right, peace, everyone. Y'all take care.
Peace.
All right, peace.